Hi, welcome to FS Brew. FS Brew is the region's first podcast focusing on all things insurance and insurtech here in the UAE and the wider Middle East. I'm Vidya. I'm the founder of Forward, a startup that works with insurance companies to accelerate their go-to-market propositions, digital transformation, and digital marketing initiatives.
And I'm Ranjit Philip. I'm an angel investor and I advise and work with startups. These days, I'm working to set up the Middle East business of a cyber insurtech company called Box Insurance. Today, we met Wilson Varghese, General Manager and Head of Operations for Zurich International Life Middle East, which is part of the Zurich International Group. He has a broad range of functions that he's responsible for. So he's responsible for customer service, claims, underwriting, client services, and business transformation for the region.
Awesome. So Ranjit, I quite enjoyed his conversation today, specifically from the at the back of the report that they got out, which is the customer benefits report. This report talks about the top ailments and health issues that people here in the Middle East face. So this is more both from a male and female perspective. It gives a whole breakdown of the stats. I found the report quite interesting, and it was quite interesting to hear from him how him and his team went about this report and why they did this report, which is really to build the whole, the claims aspect and bring out the claims aspect and bring the awareness around the need for life and critical insurance. So I think that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and our listeners can take a look at our LinkedIn page where we have reposted that report out. So it's worth referring to it. And I really like the point that he brought out about how sharing information about claims is really helping not only build trust in Zurich, but also in the whole insurance industry here as well. Sometimes, we have this feeling that these insurers are never going to pay the claims, but, Zurich is doing their best to dispel that myth in the region.
Absolutely. And every little counts in building that whole transparency and trust around that, around our industry. And I believe this whole, the customer benefits report campaign that they have launched has already garnered a lot of engagement across the Middle East. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke of very high numbers. So that's really pretty interesting. So maybe transparency helps drive engagement too.
Awesome, which is great. Great. So listen in. So today we have with us Wilson Varghese. He's the General Manager and Head of Operations, Zurich International Life Middle East, part of the Zurich Insurance Group. Wilson, it is great to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vidya, and thank you, Ranjit. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's great to have you here.
Great. Wilson, this is a question that we ask all our guests. How did you get into insurance? And can you tell us a bit more about your role at Zurich?
Sure. My story joining insurance is probably a similar one to most people who join insurance. We stumble into it by accident. All right. So I didn't have that plan getting out of college. I did an MBA in marketing, and I had planned to be a hotshot in advertising. But then we had the .com bust just about then. And you needed to look for something meaningful and something that paid the bills. And so I actually got into financial services. So I got into banking. I was in banking for about 4 years in India and here in the UAE. And then just through that association, because it's an allied industry and Zurich was a great a brand name and a great opportunity came up, I said yes to the decision. And 16 years later, I'm still in the industry and loving it. But yeah, just to go back, you join by accident usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. I think every guest except one have said the same, that they've all joined in by accident. Which is great to know. Wilson, we saw something really interesting come up from Zurich Middle East recently. You guys released a report called the Customer Benefits Report. Can you talk us through the aim of such a report and its relevance in this region?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that we are very passionate about. Insurance doesn't generally tend to be a very exciting subject. It sometimes can be a bit dry, but to be honest, there is so much purpose behind what we do. And this report that we put out annually every year gives us a lot of joy, mainly because we feel that its purpose is multifold. For one, it's about spreading awareness and education, not just about insurance and protection needs, but also about people taking active interest in their health and lifestyle and what we can do to make our lives better. Because ultimately, that's what we all have in common. So it's about that education and awareness around that piece. And I think the other element that's very important for us is also about developing trust and transparency, not just for us as a brand, but for us as an industry. I think trust is a very critical commodity in the in what we do in every business, but particularly more so in insurance, when effectively the premise is give us some money regularly, and when you're really in need, we'll be there for you. That calls for a high degree of trust, that kind of business. So our report is in many ways about trust, transparency, education and awareness, and also along the way, if we can debunk some myths that might cause people to perhaps not take the right actions, then we can help along the way. So we have the industry and society today calls for it, and it's something that we've been doing successfully for the last 7 years in terms of this report.
Right. And stepping back a little bit, when I was reading your bio, it clearly came out that delivering a great customer experience, and at the same time, you mentioned this trust and transparency piece. Underpinning that is awareness, right? In this region, usually about life and critical insurance. A, there is an awareness issue. B, yes. We all feel that we are, indestructible, which is not true. I think the pandemic it won't happen to us. So what are sort of the challenges you're facing as a company with respect to awareness, and how are you overcoming this? And I think this report is obviously a great kind of start to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ranjit, you've hit about the couple of the more important points already about it. One is awareness is low around what insurance is, how it can be leveraged and how it can be used. And it's also not a hedonistic purchase, right? It's not something you wake up in the morning and says, I got to get myself a life insurance cover or something like that. It's in some areas, it's actually even maybe a begrudging purchase, right? And so it doesn't, so there's a very natural kind of inertia that has to be overcome to get there. Also to talk about this product, or even to think about why you might need it, not exactly pleasant memories. Or pleasant thoughts, right? It's about something bad happening that you have to, look after or protect from, and things like that. So we generally have that part of things to contend and to overcome. I would say as well, we can be as an industry guilty of perhaps the product also not being very well understood. It is at the end of the day, it's a complex financial product that's put together to serve a specific need. And it's always required some explaining. Perhaps as an industry, we have been a bit more technical or in terms of explaining that, and I see clearly over the last 10-15 years that pattern changing across. But that has also made it difficult. A product that's easy to understand and easy to understand the value for is one that gains traction. So these are, I think, some of the challenges we face. Probably, and lastly, I would say it's very important to acknowledge that bad experiences in this area do damage the credibility of the overall industry, right? And it plays such an important function. But if we get it wrong, if we don't do it well, if people feel like at the moment of need, if we're not there for them, that can put people off quite significantly. And then that doesn't matter. If it was insurance, it's insurance. Then it doesn't matter if it's home or motor or life. You generally tend to have to deal with this negative perception that gets built up. So there are a few challenges for us to deal with. But for me, I'd also say there are the great opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. No, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect of your role is to lead the digital transformation for Zurich Middle East. Now, digital transformation has gained so much of meaning. It's multifaceted. It's got layers of it. Tell us what are the top 3 areas that Zurich is working on. What's the focus? Why are you focusing on that? And also, how does an incumbent insurer like Zurich approach to digital transformation? because we sort of imagine there'll be a whole lot of stakeholder management to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're developing something that requires an investment of time, resources, and commitment, it will be scrutinized. And if you're in financial services, then the numbers need to stack up. But I'd say things kind of transcend well beyond that. For us, very clearly, digital transformation is about the customer. It has to start and end there and have the customer at the center of it. So I'd say top 3 focus areas really are on investing in developing human-centered design capabilities and delivering those through great and intuitive customer journeys for our customers throughout the life cycle. So right from the digital advice process to quote and apply, all the way through to their relationships and right the way through to claim. So I think for us, being human-centered is very critical. Digital for digital's sake, or digital because everyone's doing it, or digital because then we'll be perceived as being innovators, I think only is very myopic and can be very short-lived. So it does have to, if it's with the customer in mind, then it really generates value. The other area where we are using this very significantly is to simplify ourselves. So I spoke earlier about the challenges, and so therefore the opportunity is, if we're better understood, if our value is better understood, then surely it will be taken up a lot more. So, and I don't just mean that in the realm of products and services. It's also in terms of experiences, the language we use, and how we connect in everyday language. And I think you will see that reflected quite strongly in how we position ourselves as a brand, how we communicate today, and also in all of our digital transformation journeys. And the final piece I'd probably say, again, and it links to the first around being human-centered, is how can technology enable us to be our best human selves when we are speaking to our customers. So regardless of what various stakeholders might say about the important touch points, for us it's very clear the most critical touch point and the one that matters the most is claims. That's what we are here for. That is the purpose of our organization. And so I would say that enabling us, when technology enables us to be the best humans we can be, to make that connection, then that's where we see ourselves adding value. So this is typically where Zurich has been investing. Its focus, investing in its key themes, I would say.
Right. Yeah, and good that you mentioned claims, and we are in the process of going through this once in 200 years kind of a pandemic, and obviously we have seen an uptick in pickup for life insurance and health policies, flexible life, and there's also a lot of focus on a different type of health protection which comes with wearables and trackers. That's been a trend that's been there before the pandemic as well, but now kind of intensified. I'm sure you must be seeing some of these trends from your vantage point. What are you seeing in the region, and do you see some of these being used by Zurich's own product managers or product proposition builders?
Yeah, it's an area that we are doing quite a bit in varying levels, at a group level, at a regional level, but also here in the region. So definitely, yes, there's an uptick in I'd say awareness and consciousness of people around health. So it's around not just fitness, but nutrition, lifestyle, mental well-being, and those types of things, which is all great, because I think that helps people get the best out of their lives, and just a kind of what's the right word for it? Just a preconceived notion that as you get older, well, ailments will start and things will happen, and there's just nothing you can do about it. So it's a linear factor of age. It's not true. There are some things that, yes, that are genetic or can be accidental that you cannot count for, but in large parts, you can have control of the quality of life you want to live. So we see people taking that up. I'd say actually in insurance, it's probably a little bit more prevalent in the non-life space than the life space. because in the life space, then you have to contend with human psychology around these things, right? Because we all know what's good for us, but we don't always do what's good for us, right? So in the general insurance space, telematics for helping drivers and assisting drivers minimize their accidents, and taking the right actions before an accident takes place. Drones for the purposes of loss surveying. Maybe not so much here. This is a bit more of a benign catastrophe region, right? Not prone to floods and things like that, or natural catastrophe so much. But in other regions, this certainly does help, right? If you've got a huge bushfire going in Australia, and you can't enter the region for days, but you can with drones and survey the damage and do things like that. On the life space with wearables, we're seeing firms, including ours, look at how can we incentivize customers to take right actions and to nudge them into the right actions, and then give them benefits which are through their policy, but also outside of the policy. And these are areas that we're exploring across all areas, across all spheres, I would say, local, regional, and group.
Right. And I think the word that you use, nudge, is critical. And it's almost like you have to have a daily engagement of nudges which promote the right behavior. Whereas traditionally, life insurance companies would be at the point of claim when it's all kind of over. So it takes engagement to a different level.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's just come full circle, and it's amazing to see, really, right? Because at one point of time, many years ago, it would have been the case that you take the policy, the next time you see them is when you need a claim. And then the next piece is actually how can we be throughout the journey around the customer's life cycle. But now increasingly it's about we also have so much of data that can be beneficial back to customers if we can share that back with them, and these are ways we do that. And in fact, just whilst it's not tech oriented, our annual benefits claims paid report is exactly that. It's giving the data back to customers about what the health risks are, and how it's affecting different demographics, and what quantums are being paid out, and therefore to kind of make that risk real. That helps on awareness level, but for individuals to take better action, there's so much that can be done there as well. So I think us engaging a lot more is just the sign of our times, and our industry is no different from every other area, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Wilson, now stepping back a bit into just the whole ecosystem that you are in, insurance, I think, is going through a very exciting period. We're seeing a lot of insurtechs that have come about in and around the region. Now, how has Zurich and your outlook on partnerships with insurtechs evolved over time? And are there any active projects that you are working on, which you are okay to share with our audience?
Sure, yeah, in good part I can. So we are very excited about this space, and actually have been not just watching from the sidelines, but actively engaging with insurtechs and fintechs, and developing our own capabilities as well across the levels. We see that as a huge opportunity because it's great that people are looking at perhaps specific areas that might be pain points, or where greater customer value can be added, and attacking that quite deeply, and then developing a very a paradigm shift in terms of the experience. And so us partnering with such fintechs to make sure that those get embedded within our ecosystem to create a seamless experience is one way of us engaging with them. The other is also we co-create and develop the areas with them, because we do have 150 years worth of organizational IP and experience across these areas to share around how you shape a proposition, or what's likely to impact customers more or less, and then use technology to bring that to life, to develop a better product. So we run, for example, at a group level, a Zurich Innovation Championship that has participants from different continents, where they pitch ideas, and then they look to collaborate with Zurich, and we look to scale that. So one example, I guess, that we potentially are looking at right now is a fintech that's in the space of sustainability, and people taking right actions in their daily lives to improve, to improve factors for our planet's health and growth. So it's a gamified way of doing it. Sustainability is a huge theme for us at Zurich. And so we're very, in this region particularly, we are partnering with fintech and initially rolling that out with our employees to see how can we first, experiment with our employees to see, can we do this to help them take better actions for our planet and for our future? And then of course it works for customers and the larger community as well. So that's in one space. There's other areas of cyber insurance where we're having conversations because that's a key, emergent risk. I wouldn't even say emerging risk. It's already emerged. It's a top risk. And so helping individuals navigate that who tend to be more vulnerable than perhaps organizations and corporates who have much larger wherewithal to take care of these things. So we see that as opportunities to co-create, to collaborate, to partner with fintechs. And I think, those niches that get tackled require that sometimes that deep domain, expertise. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're a full stack insurer, right? So we play in the entire space. But a lot of the digital transformation that we were talking about earlier, we've partnered with the multiple fintechs to provide one seamless experience for customers from start to finish. So the fintech that we have, fintechs that we have used to develop our digital advice proposition, which we offer to customers, our payment gateway service, our automated underwriting, our digital consent, and our digital authentication of ID. So, I think there's an old adage, right? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think this is probably best exemplified, in our approach to partnerships.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, so I'll start with the next question on CVCs. Okay, you talked about your partnerships with insurtechs and fintechs. Now we have seen across, I don't want to call it the pond, but across the sea, we've got in Qatar. There was a recent MENA hackathon conducted, and there's a setup of a CVC, corporate venture capital unit, to work closely with insurtechs to invest in them. So you mentioned the Zurich Innovation Challenge. Do you see that kind of operation or a CVC being set up here that helps Zurich kind of adapt its offerings to customers in the region locally?
Yeah, I see that. You can see very clearly from all of the developments, particularly over the last 12, 18 months, that the government is pretty much a leader in terms of driving digital transformation. And I think that permeates throughout, particularly within the insurance sector. We see, for example, there's the DIFC Innovation Hub, that is set up. And we see, the establishment of some of these, and I see that growing because it's a very mutually beneficial relationship. It helps to have incumbent players who have got a deep understanding of the industry and of what propositions and experiences add value and risks that need to be considered, because understanding risk, it takes time, effort, and research, and we can offer a whole load there. And fintechs, on the other hand, bring a very different mindset to problem solving, to ideating, etc. So I think I've seen that it's an idea whose time has come, and it's you see it springing up everywhere. In Australia, you had the Fintech Australia setup that was sponsored by the government to promote and incubate fintechs. Singapore has the same type of incubator, and many other regions do. And the UAE as well is not lacking in this space. And I see that just developing, growing, and maturing.
Yeah. Now, going back to the recent report on the customer benefits piece, we see very few insurers really focusing on the claims side, at least in such detail, right? we are more, when I say the industry is more focused on price-based promises, or maybe getting a quote in under 5 minutes or something like that. So it's refreshing to see customer testimonials and some real stats on claims experience. So how has been the feedback from partners, customers, and what is it doing in terms of social media reach or engagement across your platforms?
I think that's Ranjit, that's a great question. It's really engaging, and it really connects. At the end of the day, this is a very human industry. It's not a financial or a tech. It's ultimately it's a very human industry.
Yeah.
For us, we do see it as a responsibility, being one of the leading players in this region, to take the initiatives that promote trust, transparency, and credibility, and to start first with our own records. So we share that. We were the first ones in the region when we did it 7 years ago to share our claim stats. I think that's been great for us, particularly on the customer testimonial side. I think, again, that's really powerful message, because there's nothing like stats can tell you one thing, but a human story tells you something, completely different, and can tell it to you in a way that can make the difference.
Yeah.
And our best advocates, better than any marketing campaign we can put out, are the words and voices of our customers about their experience and how it's helped them. And I'd say it's very motivating and inspiring and purpose-giving for our people. So it's not just about what it does out in the market. It's about when people see the difference that they are making to people's lives, then that drives a very different type of culture and a sense of wanting to work together and being aligned to a common purpose. So we are tremendously inspired by our customers and how they have come through very difficult times. In terms of engagement, I think putting these things out there has had a very strong connection. We've seen significant increase in our interest and web traffic. I think the number was about 50% over the last 3 or 4 months,
Right.
particularly when we ran the protection campaign, our customer testimonials. And we've had in the last year about 62 million impressions on social media of people who kind of actively looked and engaged with us. So we see that as a very strong way of connecting. An interesting thing, right? So it tells you how far and how different the communications has come along. I joined Zurich in May of 2007, right? And in 2008, during the recession, they were looking for some free models. So I got chosen to get on a Zurich print ad, a full-page print ad. And that ad basically said, the headline, life's unpredictable, and it had me, with a Subway sandwich in my hand and mustard on my tie.
Right.
And it said, no matter how prepared you are, things, sometimes things can happen. So it's good to take insurance, which is a very, very euphemistic way of describing insurance.
Yeah.
But you see how, times pass, and that's how most things might have been back then. Now we are fully, very direct, transparent. We don't sugar. And if you've seen our manifesto, for example, it's about, bankruptcy, illness, death. These are uncomfortable words to use, but sugarcoating won't get us anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that ability to be transparent and share with raw authenticity, it is whether it's through customer testimonials or through our language or through what we are standing for without sugarcoating it, makes a huge difference. So we're seeing that clearly in our engagement stats.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think sugarcoating has been the way we've approached for maybe the past few years. Now things are changing, and I think this is a good sign of times to come. It's been brilliant having you here. Before we kind of wind this to a close, is there a message that you would like to send to anyone from the insurance industry in the UAE or outside? Could be a personal or business one.
Okay. So message to the rest of the industry.
Yes.
Okay. So I'd say, we are very privileged to be doing what we're doing, to have the opportunity to make an impact on people's lives and livelihoods. So there's so much promise, but there's also so much to get done.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think the hashtag of our times is we are in this together, right? So I think this is no different.
Yeah.
And we have so many more promises to keep. It reminds me of that Robert Frost poem, right? Yes. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but we have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep.
Perfect. Very good. I think I found the title for the podcast episode. That's very good, Wilson. So thank you very much for being here at FS Brew. We really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Likewise, Ranjit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye. Hello, this is Ranjit Philip. Thank you for listening to FS Brew. If you enjoyed this episode, I'll be grateful if you can subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. This will help us to reach more awesome listeners like you. Thank you.